Hey guys, red black greetings. This is Flamengo. Welcome to the Paparazzo Rubro-Negro channel. If you're just arriving, I invite you to follow, like, and share on all platforms. If you're on YouTube, I invite you to subscribe below, turn on notifications, and hit that cool like button on the video. We're here with a lot of information about Mengão, straight from Ninho do Urubu. Our team is also there at Ninho do Urubu, bringing you all the news and updates. The clinical situation of the players from La Cruz. How did the players return from vacation? How did they train during the break? Everything. We're bringing everything to you, that spectacular coverage you're used to following here on the Paparazzo Rubro-Negro channel. And I want to start here by reminding you to always share and check here, because many times our video isn't notified. Check if you're receiving it, if the video is already up. How is it? So, man, it's really important for you to always take a look here. A new video might have arrived even without a notification. Here's the thing, go ahead and follow us on Paparazzo too, man. Follow our account on Insta at Paparazzo Rubro-Negro. Also go to where we have the community, the Insta group, and we're always sharing the link there. We're also sharing it on WhatsApp. We have our Paparazzo Rubro-Negro group. Look for the Paparazzo Rubro-Negro group on WhatsApp. It's also very important. We're always sharing the links there too. It's really important for you to follow us on all the networks. And just a reminder, it's also Paparazzo Rubro-Negro on Insta. It's corrected to Paparubra, Paparazzo Rubro-Negro. And on X, it's at Paparazzo Rubro-Negro, okay? We're easy to find. Just look for the verified account. All right, let's go. Here's the latest information about Lucas Paquetá. Flamengo has made an offer. And according to the news outlets, including the one that's a partner of the New York Times, they reported that Flamengo's offer was rejected. Look, just to bring you the exact information about West Ham's rejection, remember that Flamengo already has an agreement with Lucas Paquetá for him to play there. We have exclusive info. Flamengo offered Paquetá a 5-year contract with the squad's top salary. And Lucas Paquetá has already said yes to Flamengo. There's already an agreement between Flamengo and Lucas Paquetá. Flamengo initially denied it. They were trying to avoid the subject so they wouldn't raise the player's price, so there wouldn't be more pressure. And the player is also acting there, asking for his release from West Ham, asking West Ham to negotiate him with Flamengo. West Ham might end up lowering the amount they wanted, which was 50 million euros. Then it came out that it would be 30. Now they're already talking about 40. The thing is, Lucas Paquetá is also trying to work on his end to lower the price. According to The Athletic, which is part of the New York Times network, West Ham rejected the 35 million euro offer. It's 32 plus 3 in bonuses for Flamengo. This was information Raiza mentioned. That part of it is a bonus. Flamengo has settled salary and contract terms with the player and now only needs to agree with West Ham. His 5-year contract keeps him at Flamengo until age 33 with salary already set. Then, Lucas Paquetá would be the biggest signing in the history of Brazilian football and also the most talked about signing of the season. They refused. Flamengo will have to raise their offer a little, and I just received some important information to share with you. Look, actually, there are 2 pieces of information. One is that West Ham still wants 43 million euros. This information now is that West Ham is still asking for a high amount. They're asking for 43 million euros. Internally, Flamengo is even considering raising the offer, but they didn't want to go over 40 million euros, but Flamengo doesn't want to lose the deal. Flamengo wants to confirm the signing of Lucas Paquetá. He was the player Flamengo had been keeping secret. Angelo Furtado also found out. He's helping us with this investigation. Look, Flamengo is willing to increase the offer. The offer, according to Angelo Furtado, is 35 million euros plus 5 million in bonuses, reaching a total of 40 million euros based on goals. And the one who is also leading and helping with the negotiation, according to Angelo, is Marcos Mota. A renowned lawyer skilled in sports law, works with top players, is part of BAP's management, and is greatly assisting Flamengo. Also, Boto is very good friends with the West Ham director, which helps with the negotiation. Besides Paquetá, who really respected West Ham after the situation where he was cleared, he stayed at West Ham. He praised West Ham. He was very thankful. He has a lot of respect there. He's in a position to even ask West Ham for a bit of help to lower things a little. So the player whose name they didn't want to mention, as Angelo confirmed, was actually Lucas Paquetá. That's an important piece of information. I want to bring you now our coverage live from Ninho do Urubu. There's a lot of really good information about the condition of Flamengo's players as they return from vacation.
Guys,
we're in this together.
it hurt me. There was no surgical procedure. I think it was even publicized. He underwent a procedure that we call regenerative or orthobiological, where you take a part of the blood from the bone marrow, a bone marrow aspirate, and apply it to the affected area. He had this procedure done during the vacation with our permission. We talked to the team from Uruguay, and he had the procedure done. On the same day, he went back home and already started muscle treatment, which involves strengthening and mobility work. We are now waiting for the end of our evaluations to see how much we need to control, how much we are going to schedule specific exercises so that he can perform like he did at the end of the year. I'll talk about the medical part, then you can add to it. Pedro presented himself well. Just to inform you, we repeated the x-ray of his forearm. Everything is fine, just like it was before the World Cup, but out of caution, really just out of the extra concern we have for our athletes. We repeated some tests. We repeated the test on his muscle injury, which also showed signs of healing. The athlete is fine, completely asymptomatic. He completed all the tests scheduled for him today by the physical therapy, physical training, and physiology teams. He did well and seemed fine. And this conditioning issue, it's important, right? He arrived early, so it's only beneficial for him.
Thank you, said Pedro. He showed up for our introductory week using the club's facilities here. He did everything with excellence, in an effective way, very focused, and now he'll continue with us in our preseason to have a great season this year.
And like that, he doesn't stop being monitored, right? When he had this injury, he started to receive special care for a few months. That's normal. When an athlete comes back from an injury, he is monitored and controlled differently from other athletes. Regarding Danilo from Palmeiras, in the game where he came in for Leo, when he got injured, there was a play where he jumped and landed and ended up suffering trauma to his to his knee. In the Brazilian Championship just over 2 months ago, October 19th, we did a magnetic resonance imaging on him. At that time, he showed some signs of synovitis, bone edema, changes in the posterior cruciate ligament, and he was very symptomatic with a lot of pain. He started an intensive treatment here at the club. We did local treatment on his knee so he could play 2 days later, if I'm not mistaken, against Racing. So he managed to recover since Leo was also injured, right? In the other game, he even went to play, but he was still very symptomatic. Leo Ortiz and Danilo performed well. Since the day of the injury, he had been experiencing knee pain and was constantly being treated by the medical department, right? Physical therapy and enduring the pain. I think that's something we really have to appreciate, the effort that Danilo made. I think it's tough. I don't know if some athletes would be able to handle what he went through. A lot of people don't know, right? They're not here every day. They're not here inside the club every day. And we really saw the amount of effort he put in. He was in pain from October until the Club World Cup final, right? He got to the Libertadores in pain, to the final in pain, and ended up being rewarded and even scored the winning goal. You kept in touch with him during the vacation, right? I said, Danilo, now you'll be able to rest. You'll be able to recover from your injury. His injury allowed for conservative treatment. It allows for conservative treatment. But I told him, if if you feel like you haven't made progress, if you haven't had significant improvement, we will reassess again with a new imaging exam and make a treatment plan so we can get you to 100% in a safe way. And then he came earlier, also during the holidays. I evaluated him here. We repeated the magnetic resonance imaging, and his magnetic resonance imaging improved. The bone edema pattern, the synovitis, the fibers of the posterior cruciate ligament. Lost that inflammatory edema pattern, but you could clearly see the signs of a partial tear. He doesn't have instability, okay? This is important, especially for the medical field. He doesn't have any signs of instability, but he still has pain. Not like before, but a pain that we take into consideration. And we made a specific plan for him. I'm not going to give a return date, but he has a specific plan so we can bring him back in the best way possible. It would be a strain. Whenever you like, we work with sports medicine within sports. Every time you put the athlete in, he feels pain, he has some injuries, and we always weigh that on a cost-benefit scale. We discuss with the athlete, discuss with the trainer, discuss with the other doctors, discuss with the coach, with our director, sometimes with the president, and make some decisions. But the final decision is always up to the athlete. What he needs to know is the truth, what the risks are, and what can happen, and we guide him, but in the end, the decision is up to the athlete. But if you have a minor muscle injury and you play, you could make that injury worse. If you have a strain in any ligament, a strain in your body, and you push yourself, it's more fragile. So yes, you always run the risk of making it worse. Danilo wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid. I think his effort really has to be appreciated.
This season for Arrascaeta was a really high-level season, like you said. Numbers, minutes played, metrics, days out, his availability rate, a high percentage, both here and with the national team. It was a job produced by many hands, of course, mainly Arrascaeta as the athlete, Felipe as the coach as well. Since we all sit down and talk, all of us are part of it. Lanian, who is the club's physiotherapist that follows him the most, and also the contact we had with the trainers and physiotherapists from the Uruguayan Federation. So we were in direct contact, experiencing this reduction in minutes, but all of this also involves Felipe, who understands, demands, and talks as well, and Arrascaeta. Our idea is to continue to go ahead with this planning, understanding each season. We know we can improve this season. We know it's a unique season with the World Cup, as you said. However, we sit down, study, and we'll come up with the best strategy for the reality we're going to face this season. Not just for Arrascaeta, as you mentioned, but individually for all our athletes.
Just to add about Arrascaeta. He's an experienced athlete, and I think he's reached a level of maturity where he knows himself. So we really value his perception, what he says about his own body, and based on that, decisions are made. So I also think that's a big credit to the athlete who has reached a level of maturity to be able to do that. He gives us information for Diogo, information for his physical therapist, and we managed to find this balance, have this control, and end up having an almost clean season without injuries.
I'll organize the answer to an important question. Does the match time influence anything? Yes, it's a bad time even for the show, for both teams. We're talking about a Super Cup final, the first national decision on our calendar. And we're doing it on February 1st with the sun, the heat at 4 p.m. in Brasilia. This directly affects the athlete's performance physiologically with an excessive increase in body temperature, which will directly lead to a decrease in metrics. All of them, whether distance or high intensity, decision-making directly affects the athlete's choices, and because of that, there's a decline. Decision-making suffers a technical decline in some part of the game. This is directly tied to excessive heat. Multiple studies exist. For example, the last World Cup in Doha, Qatar, was moved to the end of the year. Exactly one of the factors was this excessive heat, so this has a direct influence on the game, especially for our group. That's an answer that will be given on the field, as Felipe says, who is our coach. It will be built through training, the results of the evaluations, the results of the training sessions, and the analysis that is done daily in our meetings, so that then we can build in a progressive and well-controlled way the best moment to use the group. Together with Felipe?
Our decisions are not made alone. There's a whole discussion. It's a very participative process. Luis, Felipe, it's always like that. The main focus is the athlete. So everything we do is discussed, talked about, and decided together. That's how it is. This decision is never just mine, never just Diogo's, never just Luis's. Everything here is shared, but the final decision always comes after sharing. Of course, he's an athlete. There you go. You asked about Saul, but I'll just add something. About Leo Ortiz as well, I talked a lot about Danilo's effort, but Leo Ortiz also did things that you're not used to, that we're not used to seeing. He did everything he could to play in this final stretch of the Brasileirão, Libertadores, and the Club World Cup. Yeah. Those are efforts that I think I'll hardly ever see again in my life. But it really has to be remembered, it has to be talked about what these players did to achieve what they achieved. Adding to what Saul said along the same lines, an extremely professional athlete, especially in this final stretch, he also started to feel pain in his left heel area, and it began to affect his performance, even taking away his quality of life, bothering him. We did some local procedures, regular physical therapy treatment, and oral medication. This was so he could also play throughout the whole year, and he finished the season. It was something we had already discussed. If we can't achieve good progress with conservative treatment, we'll consider surgical treatment. It's Saul, who's from Spain, and he already has some trusted people. He chose to be treated by Dr. Nick Van Dyke, who is even a worldwide reference. In fact, I got tired of studying articles published by this colleague. He is a surgeon, very experienced, and he has already given feedback about the surgical procedure, informed that everything went well, right? He is now already in post-operative treatment. Normally, after you operate on a patient, we wait to discharge them to return in 2 or 3 weeks, which is when we remove the stitches, right? And the surgeon is convinced that there was no infection, that there were no complications. So Saul will stay there because of that, to monitor his surgical wound. After this evaluation, he will return to the club to begin treatment with physical therapy.
Earlier, comparing last year when we arrived and were welcomed, and this year, right? Naturally, when there isn't a relationship, it's more difficult today, after such an intense year and us being together. We see the athletes much more often than sometimes I see my relatives, so we get to know their body language, the way they speak, when they're feeling a problem, when they need some help. Besides, obviously, their medical history. So like everything goes more smoothly, right? So this year allowed us to experience intense moments and to strengthen this relationship, so it certainly made things a lot easier. And the group is pretty much the same group as last year. So that made our work easier, and as we've already mentioned, working with such committed professionals, that naturally makes our job easier, right? but certainly the fact that we already have this interaction and this two-way trust relationship, right? That certainly makes things flow more easily.
Yeah, I think that's it, man. The difference is scary. So our entrance, it's hard, right? You're in an environment that's a new cycle, everything is different, and for now, that's how it is. I think we kept in touch during the break. We already built a relationship, so it felt like we already knew what to do, like we already knew everything. This here, this here has this here. You have to take this approach, so it's a big difference, yeah, and it makes things a lot easier, right? So it was, yeah, it was really cool today, the start of the season.
Yeah, I can tell you that today we know sometimes just by looking exactly how each person is feeling, and that's really cool. We have a relationship here inside the club, in football, a daily relationship like a family, and that's for sure. The environment works in favor of the results we had last year, and God willing, there will be more blessings too.
At the World Cup, since we have a break, we probably treat it as if we're starting a new season. It's something we've already talked about, so it's very likely that with this break, I don't know, right? Maybe the athletes will still have some time, depending on the situation, on the moment we're living in. It's really possible to do new evaluations, new medical assessments, some procedures. It's aiming for a good, important end of the season like it was in 2025.
Especially because in a very positive way. Within our group, we have many players called up for the World Cup. So many will be at the World Cup. They won't have that break. In a very positive way, it shows the strength of our group, right? So there's that too. Not everyone, right, will be here. The planning, we even usually say here, our planning is game by game, right? We always think about the next game, right? Our focus is always on the space between two games. Of course, we have a plan for the entire season. We're in a packed season without having the Copa America or World Cup in the middle of the year. We use a lot of tools in our daily routine, even some examples like this for us to train and evaluate at the same time. We use these exercises to train, evaluate, and assess our players' performance. We do this within a normal schedule, without these competitions in the middle of the year, having these competitions and having the break for the players. Thank you. You always plan between games using both micro and macro views all season.